Today on MLB the Show 25, I'm going to go over 10 position players who you need to trade for inside of your franchise modes. These are not the highest rated guys in the league, but more so under the radar players who develop very well in this game. I've done two separate simulations, one that lasts 5 seasons, the other one lasted 7, and we're going to use both of those as reference points to show that these guys become some of the best players in the league despite having lower ratings or potentials. We're going to use the Rockies, who are the second lowest ranked team in the game, to show you how easy it is to acquire all of these guys. I'm going to have a separate video later today going over 10 pitchers who you need to trade for, and if that's already been uploaded by the time you're watching this, I'll leave a card at the top right of your screen for you to go ahead and check out. I wanted to specifically choose players who are not going to be free agents for a long time. I wanted guys with low amounts of MLB service years or are on long-term contracts. Now that free agents ask for more money in this game, I'd rather guys who are cheap along with being young and good. So we'll start with Ivan Herrera, the catcher of the St. Louis Cardinals, only 24 years old with 5 seasons left of team control. Really good contact hitter, good plate skills, the power can develop, and it's not too hard to get him. I decided to make something even better for us than what was offered in the trade finder. 3 pretty solid prospects, specifically B potential outfielder Jordan Beck. But as you'll see here, Herrera develops quite well in these simulations. In the first sim, he became a 2-time All-Star, very consistent power, hit above 300 3 separate times, OPS above 800 3 separate times. High WAR across the board. His defense really got better as the simulation went along, and he's become one of the best catchers in the league. In the second sim, he is starting to regress a little bit, being 31 years old. He did not turn into as good of a player here, but still ended up being a 2-time All-Star, still regularly hit for a high batting average, and still finished with solid WARs across the board. The other catcher on the list is going to be another young guy, but has a very different skill set, that being Austin Wells of the Yankees. More power and more defense with Wells, but less contact and probably more inconsistency and variance from simulation to simulation. We don't have to give up too much for him, though. Thairo Estrada and Ryan Feltner is all it's going to cost to add Wells. Unlike Herrera, he ended up doing better in the second simulation I did. In the first sim, he develops to around an 83 overall. Looks like he's starting to regress. He didn't end up doing all that well, but he still made the All-Star team twice. High home run totals, lots of power, inconsistent OPS though. Really good in 2026, not good in 2027. But the second sim, he develops into a monster. 88 overall here with the New York Mets at 32 years old. He looks like one of the best catchers in the game. Only made the All-Star team once, but a 3-time Silver Slugger. Look at the power numbers. 34 homers in 2028, 36 home runs in 2029. Over the last 4 years, he's been one of the best hitting catchers in all of baseball. And for the price that we gave, it's certainly worth it. Let's move over to the infield now. From the Boston Red Sox, first baseman Tristan Casas is not necessarily an under-the-radar name, but he develops really well in this game. I also want to shout out Rafael Devers as well. He is a monster in sim, but he's too big of a name, I feel like, to be included here. I think this is a pretty fair price. Chase Dollander doesn't usually develop that well in MLB the Show simulation, and you can get a really good power bat in Tristan Casas. I think this first sim is the floor for him. Never made the All-Star team, but still very consistent numbers across the board. 2027, he was really good, nearly hitting 300 with around 30 homers. The second sim, though, he developed into a monster. He's starting to regress now at 32 years old. He only made the All-Star team once, but is a 2-time Silver Slugger and won the MVP in 2030 with 37 home runs, 107 RBIs, 307 average, 922 OPS, and a 5 WAR. The WAR for him is never going to be that high because he plays first base and he's not a very good defender to begin with, but the guy can swing the bat. Let's look at another first baseman, former number 1 overall draft pick Spencer Torkelson with the Detroit Tigers. Good power ratings, solid contact, not a great defender, but he can play in multiple different spots. Probably best suited to stick at first base, though. I don't even think this is entirely unrealistic, as long as you make sure that the Tigers have another plan at first base, maybe Justin Henry Malloy, or do a straight-up swap with Michael Toglia. You might not want to do that if you're the Rockies, but in this game, Torkelson is better. In the first simulation, he becomes an 83 overall. The numbers are not that exciting. Solid power, average is a little bit lower than you would hope for, especially being a first baseman. But again, I kind of feel like this is the floor with Torkelson, who developed better in the second sim and still seems to be getting better. As an 87 overall, made the All-Star team in 2025, and is coming off a really strong season here with the Mariners. 34 homers, 112 RBIs, hitting for high average and a high OPS of 870. You're certainly hoping for more of that, and I think if you can develop him, he can become one of the better hitting first basemen in the game. Let's move over to the other corner spot. David Fry in Cleveland. He mashes against left-handed pitching, which is important because a lot of the guys we're going after today are much better against righties. Since he's 29 years old, he's not going to cost that much. I like Adael Amador as much as the next guy, but he also does not develop that well in this game. So in the first sim, he's an 86 overall at 34 years old. His numbers are solid, nothing spectacular. Again, I would say he ended up doing a little bit better in the second simulation that I did. He's regressing, but he's 36 years old. That's understandable. I like the attributes that he has, though, and the numbers here over the last few seasons are really solid. From 2028 onwards, he had 3 really strong seasons, OPS above 800, and a WAR of at least 3.5 in all of them. As for the middle infield, there's a few guys I really thought about, but most of them are free agents at the end of the year. Luis Arraez, Luis Rengifo, and Bo Bichette are all good options, but you might as well wait until the offseason and try to pay them there. I think getting Ha-Seong Kim probably makes a little bit more sense. The offense is not spectacular with him. He's never going to be a great offensive player for you, but the guy's an awesome defender. He's really fast. And I think for Nolan Jones and German Marquez, it's very worth it. With A potential, he's going to continue to get better and shouldn't really regress much. In simulation number 1, he's an 89. Only made the All-Star team once, but these are really good offensive numbers for a guy like him. And look at the WAR. Seasons above 5, 6.9, 6.3. And then in the second sim, he's 36. He's going downhill. Never made the All-Star team. But again, solid offensive numbers across the board, and he's one of the most valuable defensive players in the game, having a very good glove at shortstop. As for the outfield, we're going to start with a bigger name player. He's an older guy now at 30 years old, but he's under contract for 5 years. It's Anthony Santander with the Blue Jays. If you want someone who hits tanks, he's your guy. Maybe not an under-the-radar name, but even at his rating point, it's still worth it to trade for him because he is a demon in this game. In the first simulation, he goes up to a 93 overall. 3-time Silver Slugger, 4-time All-Star, won the MVP in 2025, hitting 59 homers to go along with a 311 average and a 1030 OPS. He hit 48 home runs this past season and at least 30 dingers the other 3 seasons. He was one of the best hitters in the league during this 5-year simulation. As for the 7-year run, he's now regressing at 37, still made the All-Star team twice, still hit for consistent power, 40 home runs in 2028. If this is the floor, then I will gladly take that for Anthony Santander, and he will be worth the price that you pay to trade for him and the money that it costs to get him. I might be a little bit biased with this next pick, but Stone Garrett with the Washington Nationals is a really solid under-the-radar player to look to acquire. I like his skill set. He hits for good contact, power against lefties, plate discipline, high clutch rating, and he plays good defense. The price for him is not that big. Now, granted, Charlie Condon's a really good prospect in real life. I don't think the game did him justice, giving him a 60 overall with B potential, and the Rockies wouldn't do that in real life. But in the game, it's 100% worth it. So in the first simulation, he really didn't develop all that well. He stopped playing in the majors after 2027, but if you keep him in your lineup and don't cut him, then I promise it'll be a lot better than this. In the second simulation, he played a little bit more. The rating for him was never great, but if you look at his numbers, very, very consistent. You know exactly what you're going to get with him. He always hit in the 270s with a high on-base percentage, OPS in the high 700s, played good defense, hit for solid power, and again, if you keep him in the lineup, I think he's going to remain a pretty good player for a longer period of time. The last 2 guys we're going to go over might be the best 2 guys to get on the entire list. Jake McCarthy, the center fielder of the Diamondbacks, is a demon. One of the fastest players in the game, hits for good contact, doesn't strike out, plays good defense. The trade package would only require 3 C potential prospects, and in the 2 simulations I did, he became one of the best center fielders in all of baseball. So in the first simulation I did, he currently sits at an 86 overall after the 5th season. High contact ratings across the board, 92 clutch, good defensive ratings, a little bit slower, but that's fine considering he made the All-Star team 4 separate times. Look at the triple numbers, 16 in 2027, OPS regularly above 800, and look at the WAR totals. He finished above 6 3 separate times. In the second simulation, he is starting to regress now at 34. Still made the All-Star team 3 times. Had some really impressive seasons, specifically 2030, where he won a Silver Slugger, hitting .299 with an OPS above 870. This is the floor for him, and he still finished with a WAR above 5 separate times. The last guy we're going to go over is Matt Wallner with the Twins, and I had to cheat a little bit. I traded 3 C potential prospects for an A potential in Matt Shaw, and then traded him and 2 more C's to get Matt Wallner. But it's so worth it. I did not want to keep him off the list because he is insane in this game. Mashes righties. He has a rocket for an arm. He has some notable weaknesses, but if you're willing to look past that, the strengths to his game are really, really fun. Matt Wallner was an awesome player in both of the simulations I did. Seems like that's common with the Twins. They usually have a few guys on these lists every year. In the first sim, playoff MVP, never was an all-star, but he still hit for good power, over 20 home runs in each of the last 3 seasons. 303 average, 946 OPS this last season. WAR is kind of low because he doesn't have a great glove. But in the second sim, he was even better. He's getting worse at 34 years old, but as you look at his awards, playoff MVP again, Hank Aaron Award winner, and 2-time home run champion. He never made the All-Star team, but had about 3 or 4 All-Star level seasons, including 40 homers in 2028, 44 in 2027. He's hit at least pretty much 34 homers in each of the last 5 to 6 seasons. OPS above 900 in all of those seasons. OPS above 1,000 twice. Yeah, he mashes. It might be a little bit more to get him than others on this list, but if you can get him, he is legitimately an MVP level hitter for not an MVP level trading price. So that's going to wrap up the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. We have built quite the lineup here. 8th in contact, 4th in power. Granted, we still have Brenton Doyle and Ezekiel Tovar, who I didn't want to trade away to show you how easy it is to get all these guys. But the pitching rotation is really bad. But have no fears. As I mentioned, we're going to have another video going over the 10 pitchers you should trade for later today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.